So good afternoon, everybody. I'd actually prepared a longer presentation and we got swapped, so I'll try to go through some of the slides as quickly as possible. I'm here, I'm very happy to be here to talk with you folks and talk about all the exciting things that are actually happening in our industry today, right? Just a little bit about me, currently at Huawei, though I'm representing myself here, and I was at Sun for a long time, and I was very fortunate. I was fortunate because, I was on the leading edge of a lot of big trends that are happening in our industry today. I was part of the cloud effort even before it was called cloud. And I'm going to go through a little bit of history around that. I was associated with big data before it was really called big data, and also SDN. I was involved in some efforts around that before the term SDN and OpenFlow really caught on in the industry. There are 5 mega trends that are occurring in our industry today, right? This should be common knowledge. There's cloud computing, there's big data, there's SDN, there's mobile, and then there's the future internet and what they call as the Internet of Things. Okay? It's a broad term, very similar to cloud, but it incorporates a lot of opportunity for us, right? When we talk about cloud, right, what is it that is really the key point of a cloud, right? It comes down to 3 aspects. It comes down to managing a customer's costs. It comes down to managing a customer's risk. And it comes down to managing a customer's service levels. Right? These are the 3 key points that are the attributes of cloud today. So let's take a little look at the history, right? Before 1997, there was this thing called the ISPs, right? Everybody's familiar with that. And they used to provide email and web services kind of capabilities. Around 1999, there was 1998, 1999. There was this other movement called ASPs. Okay, and ASPs actually provided application services. This was one of the first key foundations of cloud. Okay, this sort of morphed later on into what we know as software as a service. Okay. Around that time, a lot of cloud it wasn't called cloud, right? There was a lot of system management in the industry. So there were big players from IBM, from HP, from BMC, from CA, and each of them had their own offerings. There was a problem though. There was a problem with their offerings. So they all said, we'll manage your cost, we'll manage your risk, and we'll manage your service levels. Well, one thing they didn't manage for the customer was the cost. What they did was they took the cost out from the equation and put it in their bucket. And it's not the cost of acquiring Tivoli, or it's not the cost of acquiring OpenView that's really expensive. It's the cost of training, it's the cost of patching, it's the cost of adoption, it's the cost of change. So people were not very happy with that. And around 1999, there was this other effort which we kicked off at Sun, which was called N1, which basically said we're going to manage N systems as if it's one. Okay? As soon as Sun did that, a lot of the other industry jumped in. IBM jumped in, and they called it autonomic computing. HP jumped in, and they called it adaptive infrastructure. Microsoft jumped in, they called it DSI, Dynamic Systems Initiative. So all these efforts started to happen, but nothing concrete came out. And then in 2001, actually, the first real incarnation of cloud started to occur. This came as software as a service. And certainly Salesforce was one of the leading set of companies that was actually providing that service. Following that, in about 2004, all these other little services started coming up. So IaaS was actually born at that time, or infrastructure as a service was born at that time. There was Rackspace that came in, there was Amazon that came in. And so they all formed this IaaS or infrastructure layer which allowed you to manage a lot of systems. Then they had this software layer which allowed you to manage the services. And in 2008, there was the middle layer that came around that really started getting the industry momentum. This layer was known as platform as a service, and that layer is being perceived right now. So what exactly is platform as a service? So it's a distributed environment for building and running self-scaling, multi-tenant applications in the cloud. Okay? This is a key point. Now you can develop your own applications and you can put it in the cloud. So the key attributes were the applications were easy to build. They were in a secure environment. They would self-scale, and they would target a wide audience of developers. So the cloud, and I'm sure people will go into it in a lot of detail later on, but the cloud had another effect. The cloud caused mobile to really succeed. All your smartphones, all of the app stores in the world, that started to get cloudified. And with that, there was another big industry trend that was generated. It was around what we know now today as big data. So big data, actually a lot of people don't understand what is the difference between big data and business intelligence. There is a difference, and I'm going to try to walk through some of that. So business intelligence just allows you to manage your business a little more effectively. Data analytics is the intelligence behind behind business intelligence. It's the part that gives you the knowledge behind your data. But there were some problems with the traditional way that they were handling this. The problems around big data was, at that time, were around business intelligence really, was around, the solutions were very, very proprietary. They were expensive, they were slow, they were centralized, and they were process driven. And none of them took into effect this thing called unstructured data. What is unstructured data? It's data that's in your web, data that's in email, data that's all over that you never tapped before. And so all this data was captured and people started to get intelligence out of it. And that's what they call big data. But there is some industry misconception today. They say big data means lots of data. Not necessarily true. Okay? There's another industry misconception that big data is Hadoop and Hadoop ecosystem. I'm sure people have heard about it, right? That's also not true. So big data has 4 primitives. Okay? The first primitive is known as volume. There is a lot of data. Okay? That 85% of an organization's data is actually unstructured. The second thing is around velocity. It's the rate at which data keeps coming in. Okay? The third is variety. It comes in at different flows, different timelines, different aspects. And the fourth, which is really the difference between business intelligence and big data, and that is the value of data. So Hadoop, as some of you might have heard, Hadoop really concentrates on 2 aspects. It concentrates on volume and it concentrates on variety. And there are a lot of providers in this space. What it doesn't take into effect very well today is velocity. It can't do data coming in very quickly and all the time. So how do you do real-time analytics? And the second key point is value. So very often I say, well, I get value from my data. I'm getting information from my data. But there is a difference. The value from the data you get, you know what to query today. You have the data and you know exactly what to query. The true value of the data is when you don't know what to query, but you get the information. This is something people very often there's a misconception that big data is just about business intelligence. So there are a lot of companies in this space that are actually providing this service today. There's lots of opportunities and challenges there. You can look at opportunities around healthcare, you can look at pharmaceuticals, you can look at genomics, you can look at even e-health or electronic health. Okay, that's a $200 billion industry today. And that will change because of the healthcare provisions coming in, they will all have to talk to each other. Right? There's the healthcare, there's financial, there's fraud management, there's trading, there's retail, there's IT, there's manufacturing. It is pervasive across the industry today. It is very critically important. So I'm going to move very quickly because I just have another minute or two. Everybody knows about mobile. I'm not going to spend any time on mobile. If you have a smartphone, you know about mobile, right? But what's the next step of mobile? What comes after mobile? Is this thing called the Internet of Things. It's based on some of the principles of mobile computing. It covers a lot of industry trends. People have heard of smart grid. Smart grid is a subset of the Internet of Things. Digital home, connected car. Do you know there's going to be 20 million connected cars by 2014? Every major vendor, every major car manufacturer is actually looking at putting this capability into the cars. Right? There's mobile health. There is smart cities. There's e-government. There's a lot of opportunity in this thing called the Internet of Things. There's also SDN, which a lot of people have heard about, right? I'm going to go, unfortunately I'm running out of time, but SDN really is about managing your network. Why? Well, just think about what we just talked about. We talked about cloud, we talked about mobile, we talked about in the Internet of Things. What do they all rely on? They all rely on the network. Where is the network focused today? The focus of the network has really been on performance and latency. But there are lots of problems in the network. And so SDN tries to cover two main aspects of the networking industry. The first is visibility. It gives you visibility across the whole network. It gives you better manageability of the network. Okay? And this translates into your OpEx management. The second is around the APIs, around all these network devices. This has never been done in the industry before. Why is it important? Think about your Android phone. Think about your iPhone. What enabled each of these capabilities? It was the developer. So what they want to do is build a cottage industry around these network devices. This is why SDN is actually critically important. So, in conclusion, what started with the cloud has created an unimaginable number of opportunities for us. Right? There's cloud, there's mobile, there's big data, there's SDN, there's IoT, which we just talked about. And if you think that's not enough, think about what's coming down the pipe. There's open compute, which is the open source for hardware. There's non-volatile memory, there's silicon photonics, there's augmented reality. Everybody's heard of Google Glasses, maybe. Right? It's going to change the industry. There's going to be converged networks, there's going to be quantum computing in the future. So, lots of opportunities. We're living in very exciting times. And I just wanted to share that with you folks. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them offline. Thank you.